Hi there, welcome. This is Vanessa and welcome to my channel. This is my February reading wrap up. I want to talk about the 12 books that I ended up getting to in the month of February. It's a really good reading month actually. A lot of 4 stars and 1 5-star. So really exciting to talk about. The first couple books are actually nonfiction. So let's talk about Y2K, How the 2000s Became Everything by Colette Shade. I listened to an audiobook. It's narrated by Eva Kaminsky and I thought she did a really great job in the audiobook as well. I really think that the subtitle of this, which is Essays on the Future That Never Was, actually says so much about what this collection of essays is actually about. A book of essays that is really more excoriating and biting and snarky than I initially anticipated when I started it. I thought it was going to be slightly more fluffy. So I really think it's a book for like the millennials that are inheriting a worse off world than their parents had here. She does like a really interesting through line between George W. Bush, Obama, and Trump, of how like all three led to each other. She really took it out on all of them and all of their political strata around them. She was really angry, she was really hopeless at times, and that may not sound like something that's like exciting to read. I really think it depends on you as a reader. I liked to read that because I read this like a week and a half into this new presidency, or this return to this presidency, and I just needed something that was just angry, that was calling things out for what they are, that was being sharp. I felt like it was the right book at the right time for me, of being really angry and just wanting something to reflect what it is that I was feeling inside. I do think that there are some weaknesses with this book in particular. Shade does have some blinders on. Like, she comes from a very privileged background. She actually grew up in the Northern Virginia area, so yet another book that is about where I'm currently living, which is interesting. So she and her family definitely have some like idealistic views, but I think that she also knows that about herself too, and she's kind of forthcoming about that. If you're into pop culture discussions and how that intermixes with like politics and government and the economy and the climate that we're living in, I think that you would enjoy it as well, especially if you enjoy a little bit of snark and a little bit of pettiness in your narration. I read The House of My Mother, A Daughter's Quest for Freedom by Sherri Franke. This is narrated by Sherri Franke. I also listened to it on audiobook. As soon as my Holt came in, I downloaded it right away. So this is a book from the perspective of Sherri Franke, who is now in her 20s, and she grew up basically being content, YouTube content for her family's vlog channel. It was started by her mother, Ruby Franke. The channel is called 8 Passengers, and it's Sherri detailing from her point of view what it is that she saw going wrong with her family, how her mother raised them, and then how her mother changed as the YouTube channel got more and more famous. She details kind of how her mother stopped focusing so much on the family vlog channel and then turned into this semi-cult like parenting and lifestyle workshop organization that she became involved with. The husband was basically not in the picture anymore, and she was living with the youngest siblings. They were taken by CPS because of abuse that they suffered, physical abuse. I think that this book is really engrossing. I think that this book is really hard to put down. You really feel that you want to know more about Sherri's story and how she got through this and where she is now. I think she has a really strong voice in the book. There are moments in this book where I think that her age shows, and also her continued relationship with the LDS church also shows, where I don't think that she is enough out of the situation to fully see it for what it is. There are moments in here when she talks about sexual assault and how the LDS treated something that she went through that was very rough, how they didn't have her back, and I don't think that she truly sees that for what it was. She talks a lot about how her mother could have been some type of CEO, how instead her life became about raising children, raising 6 children. Again, the reason for that is because of the church that she belongs to and just the life that Mormon women are expected to lead and follow. The last thing that I think Sherri has an interesting opinion about that I disagree with is about true crime. In the book, she details so many documentaries and series that she's watched to help her understand what is happening in her life and to help her see how some people can do the things that they do that are so horrible. But she still is very much like, do not talk about my siblings, do not talk about my family, and do not show what we went through in these documentaries, while still participating in some of them. And so I think that she doesn't understand that there are aspects of true crime that are gross, they are like gratuitous, but there are also aspects of true crime that do explain and show what kinds of thoughts, ideas, religious beliefs can lead to things like this. How do things like cults exist? So I think that there are ways for us to learn about what people go through true crime in a way that is tasteful and caring of victims and their stories. I wholeheartedly agree with Sherri in not mentioning her siblings by name, her younger siblings by name, or what they went through. But I guess where I stop is like, why is it okay for her to consume true crime and talk and discuss it, but her family is kind of off the table? It's because it's something that's immediate to her. I am totally rooting for her. I'm totally rooting for her siblings. I have no idea what's going to happen with Ruby Franke, if she's going to serve all the years in prison, or Jodi Hildebrandt. It's just a very interesting case, and something that I think is going to happen more and more as these kids grow up on camera. Also, just like what this means for the rest of the family, like her aunts and uncles and their cousins are also YouTube channels. The LDS Church actually does like prop up and encourage for families to share themselves online. I just view Mormon culture really, I think it's really interesting, and I like learning about it. The next book that I read, I actually don't have that much to say. I feel less strongly about it, and that is Mood Machine: The Rise of Spotify and the Cost of the Perfect Playlist by Liz Pelly. This was narrated by Liz Pelly on audiobook, and I didn't think that she did that great of a job on the audiobook. I also listened to a podcast episode with her in it on the Switched on Pop podcast, and I think that she did a better job selling and explaining her thesis in the podcast than she did in this book. I actually think that this book was a little bit more like moralistic. I don't know if the like solutions she offers are things that I think make sense. This book is really about how Spotify got started. It did not get started to become what it is today. It started off like marketing and like just throwing things at the wall to see what would stick. They talk a lot about how Spotify has changed over time and how it used to be like managed by editors where everything was curated, and how now playlists are more algorithmic and focused on personalization. So they're more focused on what you would like versus like what is the best of this genre that we feel like you should try out. It talks a lot about data collection, which Spotify does a lot of. I mean, what company doesn't at this point? How they have deals with the major labels, how that works, what they pay artists. I do love a deep dive that talks about like technocrats and how something that they created based off of these really small ideas like kind of gets away from them and becomes like a Frankenstein's monster kind of situation. I think this book did keep my attention. I did want to finish it, but I didn't think that it was particularly like life-changing. I think it was slightly repetitive at parts. Like I said, it's a little bit more realistic. I ended up rating it 3.5 stars. I think I had higher expectations about this book. After that, I finished a book that I had started in January, and I'm really excited to say that I really enjoyed this. Rejection by Tulathimutte. I ended up rating this book 4 stars. The whole tone of the book is really destructive. It's ridiculous. It's meta. It's talking about internet culture. I saw a lot of things online about how like this is the first brain rot book. I can see where that's coming from as well. I gave The Feminist 5 stars. Loved it. It kind of set the tone for the whole thing. Picks, I gave 4 stars. Ahegao, I gave 3 stars. This one was the one that was like the most vulgar, that I had to at points kind of skip over some of the like vulgar language. I gave Our Dope Future 5 stars. The main character, the narrator of that on the audiobook, did a fantastic job. It was just so ridiculous. Like there were so many red flags. I like messaged friends like taking screenshots of what I was reading on the Kindle to share with them like how ridiculous this character is. Main character, I gave 4 out of 5 stars. 16 Metaphors, I also gave 4 out of 5 stars. And regarding Rejection, I gave 5 out of 5 stars. If you're into meta stuff, you would like this book. If you're an online person, I think that this book does offer conversations about that. A wild ride. After that, I read a book I do have, and that's Woman, Life, Freedom by Marjane Satrapi. I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars. It's a book that's an anthology, so every chapter is done by a different illustrator. There are a few illustrators that come up again, and it details the uprisings in Iran in 2022 that have to do with a young woman who was snatched by the morality police, Masa Jina Amini, and she died because of how the morality police treated her. They hit her in the head, and she died because she was not wearing her hijab correctly on her head. So that really galvanized the people of Iran to protest, and it was a big movement that wasn't just women, it was also men involved. This very strong regime that takes so many opportunities away from citizens to give them to basically oligarchs and like people who are well connected to the government and have a lot of money, and how that wealth disparity has led to so many people who are citizens to leave Iran. Just how sad that is, like, as a country, that they are losing so much life, intellect, ideas. It's about the people who stay as well and what they have gone through. There are some really devastating moments and pictures in here. This chapter really got me. Just looking at the pictures, it makes me so sad. And looking at how young the people are that died for protesting, and like just walking in the street and making your voice heard. I think that so many of the illustrations really brought that across. It also has a lot of history, a lot of really cool history, basically how people have been rising up for as long as Iran has basically been a country. It's also about happy moments, it's about celebrating with family, it's about why you want to protest for something better. A lot of these protests have died down now, and not very much has changed, and I think that also made me really sad. I came of age like in college during the Arab Spring, and I feel like so many things changed during the Arab Spring, but ultimately a lot of things also stay the same. Not just in that part of the world, not just in the Middle East and Africa and Asia, I mean in the United States as well. A lot of things do stay the same over time. And I think about like how in this country so many things changed after the murder of George Floyd, and yet so many things stayed the same, and it's kind of hopeless, right? It goes back to that Y2K book. It's good to just read about these things and let it out and to feel these emotions, and we're learning about these people and not letting their deaths go in vain. 4.5 stars though, really, really well done. If you like learning about history and protests and activism, I think it's a really insightful look at that. This chunky book, Challenger, A True Story of Heroism and Disaster at the Edge of Space by Higginbotham. This 17-hour audiobook was narrated by Jack Roy. Basically, 70% of this book is about the history of space exploration that is mandated by like the US through NASA and work between NASA and contractors. A lot of like shuttle missions and things that have led up to basically creating the Challenger. The Space Shuttle Challenger was supposed to be kind of like this reusable shuttle, and a lot of the engineering that they created to make that happen was faulty. Questions that people had, engineers had, were not listened to by management, that led to the disaster that killed 7 astronauts. One of the people who died was one of the first couple black astronauts in space, and there was also a teacher that was there, and she was basically like a hero in the eyes of the nation even before she went on board, and basically everybody saw them die on TV. If you read Higginbotham before, which I've tried to, but I DNF'd to Midnight in Chernobyl like 5 years ago when I tried to read it. He is a very technical writer. He really is focused on the minutia. He is focused on the engineering. He's focused on like the technical aspects that make up all of these engineering marvels. This book is tedious. This book is long. This book is detailed. This book is not so much focused on the humans. It's more focused on the science. There are aspects where you do get to learn about the humans, but I can't tell you after reading this that I have a good sense of who the 7 astronauts were, because it's not really focused on that. I think it's way more focused on like the little pieces that make up the shuttle and the temperature changes that cause this to happen, and the pressures from management that were given to them from the pressures of the White House. I think that I had a really hard time with this book the first 50%. And then after that, it kind of started clicking for me. And as we get to the culmination of the event and like what happened after, I think that that was also really fascinating to learn about. Basically, like, what do you do? How do you pick up the pieces? And who's at fault? I don't know if Adam Higginbotham is for me. And I say this as someone who ended up rating this 4 stars, but I don't know if I would take it upon myself to read another 400 to 450 page book about the technical aspects of something scientific like this, because my brain operates differently. Like, my brain is more like, I want to learn about the people and I want to learn about like what they went through. I know that there are readers out there, including my husband, who I've totally recommended this to, that technical aspect is way more interesting to them in a book. And so that's who I recommend this to. After that, I read BenBee and The Teacher Griefer by K.A. Holt. This is narrated by Caroline Hewitt. Though I actually kind of discourage you from listening to it unless you have both the book and the audiobook with you, because the book has so many cool like drawings and things in it that I don't think translate that well into the audiobook. I had no idea until I actually looked at the book after the fact. This is a book about 4 main characters who are really involved in like this video game that's kind of like Minecraft. They're all connected because they are in summer school class, and it's also about the teacher that leads them in that class. It's about the struggles that these kids are facing outside of school. I thought that this was a really heartfelt and sweet story. It's mostly told in free verse, again with those like picture pages as well. I really enjoyed the characters. I don't think I would read more in the series, but I did want to read this book because I did see K.A. Holt talk. I found her story so fascinating. Learning about her family and her life story was also really insightful and interesting. It made me want to pick up House Arrest, learning about like the background of the reasoning why she wrote that story. Yeah, I thought that she was a really great speaker, and so I wanted to read this book before I saw her as a speaker, but now that I've seen her as a speaker, I want to read more of her books. The biggest disappointment of the month, again, remember, I'm trying to read some adult fiction this year. Pink Slime by Fernanda Trias. I listened to mostly on audiobook because I could not get the physical copy of the book. The audiobook is narrated by Franke. I had issues with this book because, first, primarily, it's not like my regular genre, I would say. Yes, it's literary fiction, but there is some aspect of like speculative, apocalyptic, or like horror at play that I don't think jived well with me. It's also really slow. It's also really like quiet and pensive. I didn't feel strong enough feelings for the characters for that to win me over, because if you love the characters, if you love learning about them, it kind of doesn't matter if nothing is happening in the plot. In this book, the main character is basically in an apocalyptic setting where there's like something happening to the water, algae, food supply that is causing people to become really sick. She takes care of this young boy, and then her very complicated relationship with her ex-husband, who is sick, and also her mother. Thankfully, it was short. I really thought that I would pick up towards the end. I rated it 2 stars, and I'm kind of sad about that. I really wanted to get into some translated works this year and adult fiction, so that one was kind of like dampening my like feeling of like, this could be a good year for me for adult fiction. Don't worry, it got fixed later. The next book that I read after that was a 5-star book. A book that I really enjoyed. If you like graphic novels, I think that you should pick up Girl Juice by Benji. This is my 3rd Benji book at this point. So fun, so lighthearted. Just a book that made me laugh and smile and giggle and take pictures of certain panels to send to people because I thought that they were just hilarious. Benji's humor is really absurd. I don't think it's everybody's cup of tea. These girls are not people that I know in real life, but they are ideas of real girls that I know in real life, like pushed to the extreme. Definitely some not safe for work images in here. Definitely an adult graphic novel, even though it's like really cute and pastel. And it's about these girls like kind of coming together. They're roommates. It's just them hanging out and having like existential crises, thinking about dating and boys and their families, their place in the world, their sexuality. Her dog's name is Brittany, which cracks me the hell up. And so the humor is just really silly. Like, here's a panel. It's like, Brittany is not having fun. She's being traumatized. And it's Brittany having like the time of her life. There's a lot of tech speak and like modern humor in here, and just like memes or ideas of like online humor that I also enjoyed. Ultimately, the girls take care of each other and care about each other. So it's just funny, dramatic, ridiculous, silly, just a fun, good time. I really also enjoyed the illustrations. I love the characters. Definitely want more if there's more books in this series coming. that would be fantastic. I have 3 books to go. I really was expecting a lot out of this next book, and I think it was just okay. It was like 3.5 stars. That is A Strange Thing Happened in Cherry Hall by Jasmine Warga. This one was narrated by Michael Crouch, who I've listened to a lot of audiobooks of before. I have a mixed reaction to his narration style, but I think he did a good job in this audiobook. It's my 3rd Jasmine Warga, and this one is actually short. It's probably too short to tell a strong enough story for me. I really enjoyed the characters in it. The main character is basically going through like separation from his school friends and not really knowing like where he fits in. He has questions about his father that his mother hasn't really been answering, and basically the story all starts because there's been a theft of an art piece inside of this museum where his mom works, and they think that maybe his mom did it, or they have questions and thinking he did it because he hangs out at the museum as well. And it's about the main character trying to figure out where did this piece of art go with a friend that he makes named Veda, and there's also a turtle that makes kind of like a fantasy element in the story, as well as the girl that's featured in the art piece also has like a fantastical aspect to telling the story. The book is using those 2 things in a very like Catherine Applegate way to tell a bigger story and connect it to emotions. The turtle was successful. The girl in the picture maybe not as successful. Revealing the mystery of like what happened, not as successful, again because I think it happened too quickly towards the end, and I just wanted it to have a little bit more intrigue, have a little bit more delayed reaction, or like build up to tension, to figuring out how it was all connected and how it could be solved. I think it was too easy of a resolution. For that reason, I really do think that this is for younger mystery readers. I would say like that 8 to 9-year-old range than like a 12-year-old. I just thought that this was going to be like 4 or 5 stars. We'll leave my 5-star adult fiction book for the end. So let's talk about the second and last middle grade that I read, and that's Shark Teeth by Sherri Winston. This one was narrated by Dil Sabanakita. I do think parts of the audiobook were a little bit choppy, but overall I did enjoy her narration. This is a book about the parentification of children who are the oldest in a family where the parents aren't really involved or are having a hard time being present. And the main character in this is about 12-13 and is basically taking care of her younger siblings because her mother is not wanting to be involved, is focused on other things, has started to drink again and hangs out with her friends. Sharkita, the main character, is trying really hard to keep her family together. She lies in ways so that there won't be people noticing differences in her, to then end up calling Child Protective Services. Kita starts to feel kind of pulled in different directions. Yes, she wants to keep her family together, but no, she doesn't want to keep living this life either anymore. All of this starts to come to a head as her mother falls into another one of her spells where she's not really present, and people at school notice, including the assistant principal and the guidance counselor. They're 2 really good role models in this story, especially the assistant principal. And it also shows, you know, like the friends that she develops, the best friend that she has, a boy she likes. So there's other aspects to it where you see like her everyday life, the joys in her everyday life, juxtaposed with like the home life that she's trying to lead. There are a lot of tough discussions in here about the responsibility of parents and like how you could be a parent but you might not be ready to parent. I really enjoy stories like this where the main character is growing and is very complex and dynamic. I did really end up enjoying this one and I gave it 4 stars. Alright, last but not least, my 5-star adult book is Rental House by Wang, and the narrator is Jen Zhao, who did a superb job. I think that Jen Zhao is the reason why I enjoyed this book so much. Something about the way that they narrated the audiobook really delivered so many different types of people and ages and backgrounds, including people who grew up in the South and also people who are Chinese. It's about this couple. They've been married for a while. The husband is white, the wife is Chinese American, and it's about them renting a house that then the 2 sets of in-laws come to visit them. I thought the whole book was about the in-laws. They go back to their normal lives. They start living separately as they're like going through different career changes, and coming back together to a different rental house that then they meet like a couple. And then also the brother of the husband also comes to visit them too. And it's just basically like seeing how people are different, and how people are similar as well. I think what this book did best was using these characters to relay like lived experiences that we have here as immigrants, sure, and also as like millennials as well. There's really a tone of like millennial dissatisfaction that I think comes through really strongly here. Those are things that happened in Chemistry, the other book that I read by this author, but I didn't think that it landed as well as it did in this book. The characters are going through like really quiet realizations about their identity and about like the people around them. They're thinking about like being first and second generation. They're thinking about what is the American dream, what is like the amount of work that I do versus like the life, and how do I balance that? What do we owe our parents as they start aging and getting older, and how do we take care of them, and should we, like, how much should we give of ourselves before like living our own lives as well? Even just talking about like they're childless by choice and they have a dog, and that like dual income, no kids lifestyle, dog parents. So many of those things are happening in my life, and I think that that's also like why I delivered like something that was relatable but humorous, not exactly my life, but just an interesting insight into my life. It depicts white American families in a funny way, pointing out conversations that we've been having in the United States ever since the COVID pandemic, and like what we think about politics and vaccines and science. And it's funny coming through as well because the husband is a scientist and his mother has all of these beliefs that don't align with what he knows about science. So I think it's really poking fun at those conversations that a lot of us are having. I can see how people don't like this. I've read some of the reviews. People say there's no plot. It's true, there's not really any plot, but again, like I said for Pink Slime, if I really enjoy the characters, then I don't care that much that there isn't any plot. If you don't like kind of depressing conversations in literary fiction and characters that are hard to root for, that have flaws, big flaws about them, I also think that you might find this hard to read. What really sold me was the way that the dialogue came through in the audiobook, how all of these different experiences that they're having and talking with their immigrant family and their like Appalachian, like Southern family is affecting their relationship, how they view the world, how they view themselves. I definitely really enjoyed this book and I gave it 5 stars. Hopefully I read more like this in the following year. I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. Let me know if you got any recommendations, or if you have any adult literary fiction recommendations for me based off of the things that I'm wanting to read more of. That would be great as well, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!